What's up? Welcome to the animated series where we showcase the dopest talent and untold stories behind the animation industry. I'm your hostess with the mostest, Alyssa Rosa. I'm here with none other than an incredible director, writer, voice actor, honestly, just a man of all trades. Patrick Harpin, everybody. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So we've done some digging, and we found out that as a kid, your dad used to take you to his job at a local TV station. Do you think that was something that inspired you at a young age, or was it something else?
That kind of exposed me to filmmaking on like a very local, yokel, DIY level. I feel like I was into movies a lot as a kid, I was into animation, but I definitely think seeing that you could just make stuff yourself and like helping him set up shoots and being in the commercials, me and my sister, he would like use us as free labor. And we did like a Pokemon trading card ad for like the local trading card place where
That's
we're like,
so cool.
Yeah, so it was like, you know, my sister got to go like, Pikachu, go! And like, yeah, it was.
Is this like YouTubeable? Like, can I go on YouTube and look this
some
up?
of them are on YouTube. A lot of them are lost films, and maybe that's for the best.
I don't know. I kind of want to see this. I definitely want to see this now.
I really love drawing, and I really love drawing cartoons. And I think because I just loved it a lot, I started to get pretty good at it.
Oh,
and
wow.
I think in school, kids started being like, hey, you're pretty good at that. You should, you know, think about maybe doing that for a job or something. And I didn't know that was a job. But the moment where me and my family found out it was a real job was when we went to Disney World.
Oh.
And they had that, you could walk through the animation studio. And my parents and me saw people working in there, walking around with like animation desks like this. And that was where it got real, where it was like, okay, those are people in real life drawing for a living.
So your parents were very supportive of this, I assume.
Yeah, they were very supportive. Neither of them had any connection to animation or anything like that, but they were just like, he loves drawing and he seems decent at it, so like, let's see what happens.
So you went to college for this?
Yeah, I got into Cal Arts. I came out west when I was 18.
Wow. Was it scary to start something that you weren't so sure of, or were you sure of it at all?
I knew I wanted to do it, like no question. I did not know if I could like make a living at it. That school, when you get there, everyone's so talented. It's kind of like if you're the kid in your town who's like the best at art, now you're at a school with all those kids. So it actually challenged me in a good way where I was like, wow, I really got to step it up.
What was your goal with graduating? Like, what was like your ideal, I graduate and I want to go work for so-and-so. Like, who was that for you?
Yeah, honestly, my goal when I got in there, I didn't know what department I wanted to work in. I just loved animation and filmmaking. And then I found storyboarding.
Wow.
And storyboarding, that was like a mix of everything I loved. You're like a DP, you're like an actor, you're directing, you kind of get to do everything. And I was like, oh, this I like. This I could actually do.
What is the memory that stands out to you the most from your time walking the halls of Pixar's campus as a story intern?
Yeah, Pixar kind of blew me away. That to me was like Mount Olympus. Like all the best story artists in the business were all working there. It was Brad Bird's team of guys he trained. So I was trying to just soak up as much knowledge as I could. I would say the thing that blew me away the most about Pixar was when I saw the Toy Story 3 animatic. They were just like, hey, do you guys want to see it? Like, we're almost done with the movie. And it was like, the boards were so rough and it was just, you know, black lines on white paper, like, you know, nothing crazy. And that animatic, it felt like you were watching the finished movie.
Wow.
I was like crying at the part where the toys are going in the fire. And I was like, an animatic can make you feel this way.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy. I've never seen a studio that like cared as much about story as like that place at that time. So that always just stuck with me. I always try to kind of like hold myself to that standard and try to like remember the stuff they taught us.
Even to this day, you still try to remember that when you tell your own stories?
Yeah. When we were working on My Dad the Bounty Hunter, like I would ask myself the same questions that they would ask, where it's like, why are we putting the camera here? What are we trying to say? And just like getting used to asking those questions.
So you went from Blue Sky Studios and then found yourself working for Wes Anderson on the Moonrise Kingdom. Do you think that the transition from animation to live action was a hard adjustment, or was it something that you picked up easily?
That's a great question. I was working at Blue Sky as an apprentice in the intern program, and I was hoping to get hired on there full time. I had dropped out of school. My mom was not psyched about that, but I stayed on and passed the internship. Then I got to my last week and I was like, hey, so am I gonna work here full time? And my director was like, oh, you don't already work here? And I was like, that's not good. And so I basically like moved out of my apartment in East Harlem. My dad picked me up in his van. I like moved back to my parents' basement in Maine. I had dropped out, and basically the thing I'd been chasing didn't work out. So I was like, what am I gonna do? I'm back in my parents' basement in Maine, you know, taking the dog out and bringing firewood down to the stove. And I'm like, this is not good. One of the guys at Blue Sky, Tony Mackey, he was like, hey man, you really busted ass at this internship. You should apply for this Wes Anderson gig. It's going around and like, we're all working, so we can't apply for it. And I was like, oh my God, thank you, yes. And I applied for it. I somehow got it using the storyboard samples I'd done in college.
Wow.
And they asked me if I was New York based, and I lied and said, yes, I am. You know, hopped a Greyhound back to New York. I had to like pretend that I lived there. Like I asked my old roommate, I was like, hey, can I crash on your couch for a while? And so I basically couch surfed and started working with Wes Anderson.
Wow.
Yeah, he hired me as a storyboard artist. And originally there was like 2 storyboard artists in the film, and then it was just me. He liked my stuff, which was great. But then he was like, oh, you can handle it. And I was like, okay, that's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't even 21 yet. It was like one of the craziest schedules ever, because you're storyboarding a whole movie as one person.
Yeah.
Working for Wes, it was like, if you know his style, you're already kind of going in like, okay, yeah, like I kind of know what you want. You want to shoot everything kind of flat, proscenium.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of knew, you know, his house style.
Yes.
But also like, you know, actually working with the guy is another experience. So there's what you think he might do, and then he might surprise you.
I feel like it's very inspiring, especially for young artists out there that think that they have to do the traditional route. Would you say that your journey specifically benefited from you not doing, you know, finishing school and stuff like that? Or would you just say like, you know, whatever works for you as an artist or creative?
I think that like going to school now, like if I was looking at like how much college tuition is now, like I probably wouldn't go to school. Mm-hmm. Like I would probably just learn online. There's so many resources online that you can use. Everyone's posting their boards and stuff all the time. So if you can't afford school, like I would not sweat it.
Okay.
Especially right now with where the industry's at. But yeah, hopping around is great. And even working for Wes, it was like directors aren't gods. They're just people. Like you see some stuff that doesn't work, and then it kind of gets figured out in the process. It kind of demystified a lot of filmmaking for me.
So you've written before that you firmly believe animation should be viewed as a medium.
Yes.
And not as a genre. I also agree. Is there a piece of animation that represents that for you?
Satoshi Kon's Tokyo Godfathers. That's not like any other animated movie I've ever seen. It could easily be a live action movie, but it isn't. And, you know, Ralph Bakshi, who did like the Lord of the Rings movies and all these kind of wild, crazy movies, he did this movie called American Pop that I think it's his like most grown up movie. It's like you're watching like an animated saga about a family. It's not like The Godfather, but it's more that kind of storytelling. I feel like we are in the West, we just stick to these few genres in animation, and it's like animation doesn't have to do that. You can tell a detective story. You can do a horror movie within animation.
I agree.
We don't have like an animated Breaking Bad to point to. It's
wow. Yeah, you're right.
like there's a lot of great stuff out there. There's a lot of variety coming out of Japan always, but I think in the West, it's like we're still kind of trying to get out of the kids' table.
Is that something that you want to do personally?
Yes. I like doing kid stuff. If you like doing comedy, it's kind of easy to like, yeah, you're making yourself laugh.
Is there a specific genre that you feel like is not represented that you would actually like to take on yourself?
I mean, I'd love to see something that's like romantic comedy with guns in it. Like I'd love to see like
like a Mr. and Mrs. Smith with
yeah,
that'd be fun.
Or like a Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Oh,
like,
that'd be really fun. Yeah.
I'd love to see someone just do something in animation that's not just influenced by animation.
What really sets apart a good storyboard artist and a good director to you?
You know, I would say as a storyboard artist, it's like taking cues from the director. The director, you might, as a storyboard artist, be just thinking about your scene. The director's thinking about all the scenes and how they play together. So I think like, as a director, you're thinking more about camera, you're thinking more about editorial, and I think you're also, as a storyboard artist, you could board your scene like it's the most dramatic scene in the movie, and the director would be like, that's just like an in-between scene where they're not really getting into it yet in the conflict.
Yeah.
But you boarded it like, isn't it great? I made it so dramatic. And the director is going to be like, I know you wanted to do that, but like, this is actually the dramatic scene where the character says, I never loved you or whatever. Like, we want to save that juice for this. And I think that's kind of what separates a director from a story artist. Like, story artists are mini directors. Like, it's the best training to be a director, I think, kind of in the world, because you're literally, it's like, it's an entry-level job for directing. Like, you're basically choosing shots. You know, you're taking cues from a director, but like, you get to decide a lot as a story artist. That's where you can kind of learn your chops. And then once you're a director, you kind of need to see the whole episode and the whole movie, not just making your scene really razzle dazzle.
Have you ever had moments where you were afraid to do something out of the box?
One of the things that I encountered that I was not equipped for was like voice directing actors. I think the thing that I learned in the process was like, oh, you gotta be really present with the actors. Like, they're being really vulnerable and you gotta be right there with them in the moment and kind of support them. Because even if you're, you know, talking to some actor who's like, oh, they're this big actor, they're in all these shows, in that moment, they're kind of vulnerable with you. And you gotta help them hit the target any way you can and be really like supportive, but also clear in your direction. You gotta kind of, if it's a big moment, you're like, no, I need you up here. Like, they stole your kids. This is not a casual conversation. And and they're like, oh, okay. So they feed off of you. And that was something that you don't learn that in animation school.
When those roles are reversed and you're the person that's voice acting, do you feel the same way as the actors do, where it's like, I'm very vulnerable right now and I need just to know if I'm doing this correctly? Or are you more like confident with it and you're like, I know exactly how this sounds? No,
it's the same situation where you're in the character, so you kind of, you're relying on them for like, hey, how was that? Because you can't step outside yourself necessarily. So yeah, I was like, you know, I have a lot of experience doing voice acting. I started out doing scratch voice acting on like most of the productions I would work on. So it's kind of like you work for free for 5 to 10 years, but then like eventually sometimes they might use you in something and then you're like a real voice actor.
So I just have one question for you in particular.
Okay.
How do you feel about this man?
Oh my goodness. Complicated feelings. This is Blobby. I voiced Blobby on My Dad the Bounty Hunter, and he's like a part of me now.
Yeah.
So he's in me, in my mind.
So sometimes we're talking to Patrick, but other times it might be Blobby?
It's Patrick right now, but Blobby may have shown up.
I love Blobby.
Yeah, it's like Tom Hardy in Venom. Blobby's very confident in himself, whether he's qualified or not. He's a hustler, you know, and
he's gotta do what he's gotta do.
Yeah, he's out here, he's working, he, doesn't really like authority. I have that in common with him.
Oh my God, me too.
My family was like, they heard Blobby and they were like, oh, that's just that puppet you always used to do. Because I had a puppet and I would always annoy my family with it. They hated it. And they were like, that's Bald Joe, that's the voice, he's doing it again.
In the realm of writing, you've stated that you think it's important to honor the work that comes after you and make sure that your artists get a strong script. Did you develop that philosophy from having been an artist before, a writer, or another way?
I haven't taken like formal courses in writing. I was expecting story artists to kind of be problem solvers and help the story. And when I got in the industry, I found out like not every job is like that. Sometimes they kind of just want you to like, just shut up and draw the script. And you're like, okay. But when you get a script that's like not great, you can tell they kind of just threw it out there real quick. It made me want to write. It made me like, I can write better than what they're giving me. Imagine if I wrote something good for other board artists to board. And I think that's also too, like, it's a respect thing where you're like, hey, I want to give you a really tight script so you can do your job. Right. And I think because I've worked as a story artist, I take that pretty seriously.
So based on the climate happening now in the industry, do you still feel the way that you did about telling stories in the toughest times? Do you feel like right now, specifically, a lot of the creative stuff we'll probably see later on?
Obviously this is a crazy time to try and make art. I feel like it's bigger than animation. Like, I feel like right now, like if you're like a young person who's like thinking about getting into animation, this is like a scary time, but it's also like, I feel like it's kind of like art war where it's like creatives versus commerce, and like commerce needs to remember why they need us, why we're the ones that make stuff. So it's like a war that kind of has to happen. I wouldn't worry about stuff you can't control.
Right.
I'd worry about the stuff you can control.
Right.
And I even have to do that where it's like, instead of worrying about, oh, am I gonna be able to pitch this thing? Like, you know what? I'm just gonna do a short comic of it that I can draw with my own hands, and I'm gonna put it online, and I don't need anyone's permission to do that. Like, I think this is the time to get to work on your own stories, original stuff in whatever you have access to, whether it's a comic or short animatics, whatever you can do to keep getting better and honing your skills. Even though these are hard times, I think the reason I'm optimistic is that the hunger with the audience is not going away.
Nope.
It's getting more intense. People want more animation now than when I was a kid.
Right.
So to me, it's kind of like, oh, they're not like, they're not gonna be making money off animation. I'm like, someone's gonna be making money off animation. Like Spider-Verse is beating the live action superhero movies.
Yes.
Like animation is here and people love it.
I have one final question before we have some fun. What change do you want to see in animation in the next few years?
I feel like we haven't been as critical on our own stories as I think we should have. Like, I think that a lot of times on movies, it's all about the visuals, and sometimes story is like, yeah, we'll get the script later. And to me, it's like, no, like the story is the most important thing. I would love to see us having those tough talks earlier on movies and shows, where if something's not working, we talk about it and fix it. Don't wait till the movie's animated. I would love to see also people like show stuff to like someone you went to high school with, not just your animation friends. Like show it to someone who doesn't have skin in the game, see what they say of watching your animatic. I think we need to do that more often because we're kind of fighting for our right to party as animation people. The stuff I learned at Pixar was like, don't be afraid to like poke holes in your own thing, and like, don't be afraid to kind of self-crit your animatics or your script.
Full circle, like you said. All right.
Yeah.
Want to play some games?
Let's do it.
So we're gonna argue over which animated characters out of this hat right here are worth being besties with, create a convent with, or you remember Clayton from Tarzan?
Yeah.
And his demise? Yeah, we're gonna have to weigh our options on who we want that to happen to.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna let you choose.
Okay, I picked the three.
Pick the three, and we're gonna...
I'm gonna try to only pick three. Reggie Rocket,
Ooh.
Dipper Pines,
Ooh.
Mr. Incredible.
This is really hard.
Befriend, team up, or defeat.
We've got some heavy hitters.
Okay, Reggie Rocket, befriend.
Okay.
She was cool. She was a cool older sister.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Mr. Incredible, team up.
Okay.
I feel like he could protect me
Okay.
as a non-super.
Right.
And I'm gonna defeat Dipper Pines.
What do you have against Dipper?
Nothing really. I just think it would be kind of funny.
To beat him up
Yeah.
with Mr. Incredible?
Yes, that would be fun.
Isn't he a child?
Yeah, but I feel like it's voiced by an adult, so it's fine.
Okay. Okay. That's great. So I'm actually in the same boat as you. I'm gonna stick with my girl Reggie. I'm gonna team up with Dipper.
Nice.
And try to defeat Mr. Incredible. I don't know if we would get along very well, like...
You guys are both alphas, so like maybe that's...
Right, that's exactly what it is. Thank you for playing.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Do you have anything you want to say to our audience before we leave?
If you love animation, don't give up hope. We need storytellers. We need people telling new stories in animation. Don't just look at animation. Be inspired by everything. Live your life. Get a weird job. Talk to people outside animation, because you can't create the illusion of life if you haven't lived one. That's my advice.
I'm gonna put that on a shirt.
Thank you. Love you guys.
Today, my guest, I don't know if I could even, where I can even begin with this guest, but Emmy-nominated actress and voice actress, Yvette Nicole Brown. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So when you were a little girl growing up in Ohio, did any animated film ever spark, your love for storytelling?
It's so weird to have this conversation while we're in the midst of a strike, because I was going to say that I'm a huge Disney fan. That is true. And so there were a lot of animated shows back then, movies that I loved. I also grew up, watching like the Jetsons and the Flintstones and Jim, Strawberry Shortcake. There were so many back in the 70s and 80s that I loved, yeah.
I grew up watching those too because my mom, she used to just not force me, but like she really wanted me to be educated on like,
Yeah.
classic cartoons.
Yeah.
Because SpongeBob wasn't cutting it for her, which is very, very valid. So for you as a child, was there anything outside of just the storytelling that like drew you into wanting to be an actress?
I love the idea of make-believe. I grew up in East Cleveland, and it was a single-parent home, me and my mom and my brother. And, there weren't a lot of things you could dream about from that space, from what I was seeing outside the window, right? And so for me, television and animation kind of was a place where my imagination could kind of run free. So I dreamed big back then and thought about a lot of I just saw those worlds as places that I could escape my current circumstances.
I've heard that you booked your first role basically by sending in a postcard. Is that true?
Yes, I was recently dropped by an agent, and it was a rough drop. It was like, your pictures and resume will be down at the front desk. Like, you can't even come up to say goodbye. Just come on, get your stuff. So I had just been dropped, and I didn't have a lot of credits, And so I thought, well, this is the bottom. I'm back at the bottom. So let me just send out some postcards to different casting directors who are casting shows that I think I'd be right for. And I reached out to Robbie Reed Humes, who was casting a show that, because I'm on strike, I can't mention.
Yes.
But she was casting a hit show at the time. And I just sent a postcard saying, "Dear Miss Reed, you don't know me, but I think I'm a great actress, and I'd love to be considered for anything you have that might come up on blank show." And she happened to be casting a 2-episode arc on that show the next week. And so my postcard crossed her desk at the right time. And I've asked her 1,000 times, because we're friends now, and she's cast me in a lot of different things since then. That was 20 years ago. I asked her, I said, "Why did you bring me in? Like, I didn't have any credits. I didn't have an agent. Like, I'm sending you a postcard with a pager on it." That's how long ago it was. I had a pager, no cell phones back then. And she was like, "Oh, just something about your little face in the picture. I just thought I should meet you." And she met me, and I ended up doing 2 episodes on that great show. And I still get stopped on the street for my role on that show. So
I recently rewatched that episode specifically, and I was like, oh, phenomenal, just amazing.
It was a good time.
Have you ever been someone who always wants to take a chance, or believes in taking chances?
Absolutely. My entire life is taking chances. I've said this in interviews before, but I moved to LA right after college with 2 rolling duffel bags, a place to stay for 3 days, and $500 that I had saved. And my aunt, bless her heart, on the way to the airport, she and my mom drove me to the airport. She gave me an additional $1,000 in 2 different cards. As I opened a card, it was like another check for $500. So I came here with $1,500 thanks to my Aunt Mickey. But I mean, who moves to across country with a place to stay for 3 days and $500? It was the dumbest, most naive move. But as soon as I got here, I got on the phone. I started calling every friend I had back in Ohio, saying, "Does anybody have family members in Cleveland? In LA, is there anyone that knows anybody that lives in LA?" And my friend Diana, bless her heart, her mom had just moved to LA. And shout out to Gloria Gaines. She let me sleep on her love seat for the first month. I think I slept on her love seat for maybe 2 months. And then I got a temp job at Motown Records and started catching the bus going to LA from Pasadena. And then everything just kind of took off from there. But yeah, I believe in taking risks. I think, especially when you're young, I feel like life is about figuring out where you want to be, what you want to do. And don't do it my way, kids. Make it a calculated risk. But I feel like God protects the foolish and the dumb.
Very much so.
He really protected me, because Lord knows what could have happened to me in LA, not knowing anybody and not really having a place to stay.
Did you have someone in your life that inspired you to always take a chance, though?
Oh, my mother, may she rest in peace. She was my biggest champion. She was my biggest cheerleader. And she, by her own life, modeled the idea that you only live once. Like, what are we doing? If you're not going to go for your big dream, what really are you doing? Why are we here if not to try to be all that we can be? And again, calculated risk. Don't be crazy. Don't get yourself in trouble, but believing in a dream and betting on yourself always. So that was my mom.
So I would be doing everyone a disservice if I didn't acknowledge that you've been a part of so many of our youth, like playing iconic characters. How does it feel to know that like you have made such an imprint on a lot of people's lives, like myself, like watching you when I was a kid?
I am honored and humbled that I've been a part of anything that touched anyone. You know, I grew up watching, you know, Kim Fields and Janet Jackson is my favorite. Everybody knows that. And watching Felicia Rashad and B. Arthur and Betty White. And these were my heroes, Marla Gibbs, Jack A. Harry. So I know that feeling of watching someone on television and going, oh, I hope I can do what they do someday, and learning from them and feeling like, oh, I wish they could be my friend, or I wish this was my auntie, or whatever we think when we watch people on television. And so to realize that I've been that for a group of young people who are now in their 30s, but the idea that I'm now, you know, that my roles from 20 years ago now mean that to them just blesses my heart. And I love when people come up and tell me, you know, I'm not one of those people that's like, don't talk to me, or don't, if I'm out in the world and you see me, come on up and say hi and let's have a conversation, because I absolutely love it. The roles that I take, because of the show that I did first was a kid's show, I've been very mindful of making sure that I stay in the PG-13 lane, so that as kids continue to discover that show, I'm not the reason that they see something or learn about something before they're ready to process it. So I try to be on the type of shows where anyone that loved me on that first kids show can continue to watch me in anything else I do and know that they're in safe hands.
That's very nice of you, actually, and very thoughtful at the same time. Have there ever been any challenges for you, like with making that decision?
I think that we are role models. I'm not one of those people that feels like I'm supposed, you know, good luck to your kids.
Right.
You know, you should tell your kids not to watch me. No, I chose to be on a kid show. I put myself on a kid show. So I put myself out there in front of your children, and I don't take that lightly. So I'm going to continue to protect your babies with the roles that I take. That is my choice. Now, it's not everybody's choice. Everybody gets to make the choice that they want to make, but it has never been a hard decision for me. And every agent that I've had, I've been very clear, like, this is the path I'm on. This is the person that I am. I'm a person of faith. And there's certain things I can't do. Certain things I don't even want to do. So if a role comes in and I'm like, that's a little bit too far across the line for me, they understand. Now, the only time there's a little gray area is in animation, actually, because it's not my face. So there's been a couple of animated shows that I've been on where my character hasn't been exceptionally naughty, but the show may be a little more adult. But still, again, if anyone's following my character, I try to make sure the best I can that even my animated characters don't veer too far from the straight and narrow.
You've done a ton of different work throughout your entire life, but I feel like the common theme that I can remember from watching all of your work, it tends to be family oriented. For you, is that something that always draws you to a project? Like, are you always influenced by the family aspect?
I'm always drawn into projects and roles that are fun. I want them to have a little bit of silliness, joy in them. I want there to be a lesson in there. If it's a tougher type role, if it's a drama role, I want there to be some sort of lesson. I'm drawn to, again, the idea that it's the type of project that someone from 8 to 80 could watch, and enjoy. I don't want to be a downer. I don't want someone turning on a television show or a movie that I'm in and turning it off feeling worse. I want them to leave anything that I'm a part of feeling better. So yeah, I'm drawn by the joy of a project.
Being on screen is one thing, and then voice acting is another. Does it scratch a different type of creative itch for you when you get into the booth?
Yeah, like I'm an introvert, and so for me, voiceover is everything because it's such a solitary pursuit. Like, I'm sitting in my booth right now. This is my little quiet space. It's me and the voices in my head and the characters in my head that I get to create. Especially during COVID, because before COVID, there would be times when you would go in and record and you'd record with other actors. But most of my work, even before COVID, was just me in the booth by myself. And so it's fun to get to create it's just you and the casting director and maybe some of the executives that are trying to figure out exactly what they want. But it doesn't require makeup. It doesn't require Spanx. You can, have a little meal at the side, take a little bite of some things. Like, it's less presentational. And I'm not a vain person, so I'm not someone that needs my face out there. I kind of like being kind of incognito, playing a squirrel or a puppy or something.
How do you break down a character for animation specifically?
It's funny. Animation is intuitive for me because I used to do voices when I was a kid. I used to create little vignettes and stuff with my little cassette tape player when I was a kid. So I feel like I've been doing this my whole life. And I also started as a singer. So I understand the booth. I understand using my voice in different ways and doubling myself. And ADR, I am one of the best when it comes to ADR. If I hear myself say it, I can match it perfectly. I'm like a computer when it comes to that. And so for animation, it all, for me, begins with the drawing of the character. Once they show me what that little thing or person or, animal looks like, the sound of what they sound like just comes to me. And then it's just letting that little being speak, So it's been very intuitive. I don't sit down and go, well, this is a pond frog, so that he needs to, my brain doesn't work like that. I'm not trained as an actor or as a voice actor.
Oh, wow.
It's all just God's gift. So I don't know how to do it in any other way than just looking at the picture and going, I think, this little, cat sounds like this, so it's just intuitive.
Do you have any advice at all for like young actors, even actors who not are super young, maybe they're 30, maybe they're 40, who knows? Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, first, that ego's bad. We're all just people. We're all just, if you're in this industry, especially in this weird time that we're in right now with the strikes and everything, if you're blessed to be working, rejoice, but it doesn't make you better. Sometimes I'll hear from people and they'll say, I saw you at the grocery store and I was scared to come say up. I'm just a human being. Come on up, say hi. I don't think too highly of myself. I don't think that because I've been blessed, and it is a blessing to be in this business as long as I've been in this business, I don't think that makes me special. I've always felt like either we're all special or none of us are special. Either everyone's important or nobody's important. You don't get to decide that because you can do A, B, or C that you matter more. So I think that when you come into this industry, you need to know who you are, because if you don't, you'll allow this industry to decide who you are. And usually what they decide is not the truth. You have to be aware of what you will and will not do before they start to ask you to compromise, because there's always going to be somebody dangling a carrot in front of you. And if you don't know what you will or won't do, you'll find yourself way, way down a road that you never thought you would find yourself in. I would tell young people or new people in the industry, don't get into the party game. It's a trick. They'll tell you, go to the parties. That's where the jobs are. No. If you're at the parties, they know you're not working. Because if you're working, you're in bed because you got to go to work the next day. Right. So there's no deals happening at those parties, just debauchery and craziness. So stay away from the parties and be a kind person. I've gotten more opportunities in this business because I'm a kind person than because I'm particularly talented. And Lord knows, most of the time I ain't been cute enough or thin enough for what they think you're supposed to be for this industry. So your decency and your kindness and your care for people will create opportunities and lanes for you that your talent and beauty and youth will not. Right. And talent and beauty and youth can shift and change or be affected by life. So better to be a fun person and a nice person and a kind person, because those people will get the call before the other stuff all the time. And share your information. I think a lot of people think that there's not enough to go around. There is. That's a myth, that there's only one of us can get in. It's not true. I've said this before in a lot of interviews. When I find out about an audition, I call everyone that looks like me and I tell them they're looking for us.
Wow.
Because I might be finding out about something because I'm supposed to tell my friend Sandy, or I'm supposed to tell my friend Carla. And nothing would make me happier than being the reason that Carla or Sandy or somebody else I love and respect gets a job. You know what I'm saying? Because if they can book it over me, it was their job. With that mindset, never once have I gone without. I've always been able to share, and other people have gotten to eat as well, which is what we're supposed to do. It's all about all of us eating.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And it's like you're supposed to celebrate the people around you, especially if you value them as friends, as family, whatever it may be.
We got such a short time to be here, and so little time to experience everything that we want to experience. So you can't let other people's ideas about who you should be color who you should be. You know who you want to be. You know what you want to do. You know what you want to put in the world. You decide.
So you've once said kindness opens doors. What and or who is your touch base that inspires you to keep that kindness going?
Well, going back to my mom again, my mom used to have this thing. She told me and my brother, she had these things called be nice gifts. So my mother was the kind of person where if you mentioned that you like butterflies randomly in a conversation, she's going to find a butterfly of some sort to send to you. And she doesn't wait till your birthday or Christmas. She would just send it to you with a little note saying, this is a be nice gift. And then she also had these things called pop calls that me and my brother used to do with her. She would just wake up on a Saturday and go, let's just go visit Gloria. And we go over and knock on the door and, hey, Gloria, we just came to do a little pop call. Here's a little be nice gift. So her whole life was about bringing sunshine and joy into people's lives and lightening people's loads. And so I feel like, you know, she raised me to be that kind of person. And then also, I just know kindness is better.
Yes.
It's just better to be nice to people. I don't know how people can be just hateful and nasty. It's something that you give to other people, but you also get a lot when you're kind to people. You really do.
You were nominated for an Emmy. And I know that comes with like a lot of maybe pressure, but also excitement. For you, was the recognition the highlight, or was it really just working on that specific show that you were nominated for?
You know, I loved working on that particular show because it was Black women coming together to celebrate the comedy and humor of other Black women. And I felt so free. I felt freer on that set than I've ever felt because I saw me. Everywhere I looked, I saw me. And Robin Thede and Issa Rae, the creators and showrunner of that show, created a safe space for all of us. And I was overjoyed that my first Emmy nomination came from the hand and the mind of Black women. Like something about that will stay with me forever. This year, I got to read the nominations, and I got to be the voice that called out other names for the first time. And I was honored and shocked that they thought of me to do that. I'm like, I got there on that deal. I can't do that. They're gonna let me do this, you know?
Yeah. So
I always stay in that sense, that place of wonder and excitement and joy. Again, I've never become jaded. I've never gotten to the point where I feel like any of this is supposed to be happening because it's something so great about me. There ain't nothing great about me. I'm just a kid from East Cleveland. I'm excited every day to do all of this stuff. And so the fact that I get to be called an Emmy nominee for the rest of my life, unless I win one day, which who knows, but even if I never win one, I get to be an Emmy nominee for the rest of my life. That's amazing.
That's incredible. I love to ask people this question when they come on, especially during this time that we're experiencing in the industry. So what change would you like to see across the board, whether it's animation, acting, live action? What would you like to see in the next few years?
You know, I'd like to see an industry where everybody's contributions are valued. I'd like to see an industry where everyone can earn a living wage and have insurance and enough money to feed their kids and themselves and keep a roof over their heads. I would love to see an industry where diversity is not about tokenism and is really, you know, the DEI initiatives are really trying to level the playing field. I'd love to see an industry where the majority people that have been allowed to be the gatekeepers for years will realize that it's not others taking their jobs because they don't own those jobs.
Yes.
How about that?
Right.
And everyone will be allowed to compete and win and shine. I would love to see executive suites with more people of color and more women. And I'd love to see more crews behind the scenes that are have more people of color and women.
Yes.
And I'd like the strikes to end.
Yes.
I'd like the billionaire fat cats in charge to realize that they can survive with one less yacht.
Yes.
It's okay.
Well, thank you for hanging out with me. And it's been a pleasure speaking to you. Honestly, like I said, childhood dream right here. I would have never guessed in my lifetime that I'll be sitting across from you right now.
That makes me very happy. Thank you.
Before we go, though, is there anything else you would like to say to our audience that maybe we haven't touched on or that you think is very vital and important for them to know?
You know, just that, you know, I saw this, I don't even know, and I feel bad saying it because I can't say who said it first, but I saw this thing on Instagram that sticks with me, and it says, "Life is tricky, baby. Stay in your magic." So I just want to leave that with everybody. You know, there's so much craziness going on. It's hot outside. We got global warming and politics are crazy and took away affirmative action. There's so many things to just be so sad about. But that's the tricky part of life. You know, stay in your magic and find a way to spread love and joy if you can. And start with yourself, because we need to love ourselves and be kinder to ourselves more as well.
I don't think I could have said it any better myself. So thank you.
Thank you. Yay.
Yay! We did it!